What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here, and I wanted to talk to you today about practical versus tactical and what the differences are between practical firearms and tactical firearms. And I wanted to kind of give you guys some things to think about because I see a lot of guys on YouTube, especially the tactical YouTube channels, they only present one side of the argument of practical versus tactical. And so what I mean by that is that a lot of people that are new to prepping or new to firearms and they're just starting to get into firearms, if they turn on YouTube, everything they see is tactical, AR-15s, all the tactical channels out there, like, I'm not going to name the names, so I'm sure you guys know, but there's so many YouTube channels, where they only focus on tactical firearms and tactical shooting drills and tactical training. Everything has to be tactical. You got to have a tactical socks, tactical boots, tactical, sunscreen. Everything with these people has to be tactical, and I want to just offer an alternate point of view on firearms and prepping that's not necessarily just everything having to be tactical, and that's what I call practical. All right. So, a little bit about my motivation for this video is, I was talking recently with a friend of mine and we were chatting about pistols, and he was telling me that, he wanted to get a new pistol, but the problem with the pistol that he liked was that there was no accessory rail, so he couldn't mount a streamlight on there, a TLR streamlight, or, a Surefire pistol light, on a Picatinny rail underneath his pistol. And, he said that he couldn't buy the pistol, or he didn't want to buy the pistol because it didn't have a rail on it. And that was like totally a disqualifying factor for him. And I told him, I said, it's not a big deal. It's still a great pistol, and the pistol that he was talking about was the Beretta, the old fashioned Beretta from the 90s, the 9mm Beretta that the military used to issue to guys back in the 90s. That a lot of you guys probably saw in the 90s action movies, and we started debating about, do you really need a Picatinny rail on a pistol? Do you really need a weapon mounted light on your pistol? And we were going back and forth about it. And so we went back and forth about that. And I said, listen, man, you don't have a Picatinny rail on it, but it's still a good pistol. It's withstood the test of time. And, you don't necessarily need a light mounted on your pistol. You can just take a flashlight and hold a flashlight and use the flashlight with your other hand. And then he started getting upset about it. And he said, well, that's too much work. It doesn't give you a free hand. And I said, all right, that's understandable, but it kind of got me thinking and about, tactical versus practical and a lot of these YouTube channels that really push everything to be tactical, and you have to have a pistol with a flashlight on it, and you need to have a 3-point sling or single-point sling, and you need to have a plate carrier with MOLLE webbing all over it, and, you need to have tactical training courses in order to be a good shooter. And I'm here to tell you guys that that's not necessarily true, and you don't need all those things to survive SHTF, number one, and number two, to protect your family, and number three, to feed your family for hunting purposes, all right? And so a lot of people, a lot of new shooters, they're really getting caught up in the whole tactical craze, and a lot of it is political, with everything going on with gun control and politics and assault weapons. A lot of these gun channels on YouTube, they're really pushing for tactical weapons and AR-15s and things like that because it's election season is coming up, and that's kind of the hot topic, and so they really push the tactical mindset and AR-15s and, 300 blackout, 5.56, things like that, and doing the tactical drills and stuff. And I'm here to tell you that if you're a new shooter, you don't necessarily need all these tactical firearms and tactical accessories in order to defend your family and defend your property, and especially during SHTF. Now, another thing that kind of motivated me for this video is I recently went shooting with some friends of mine, and they had 300 blackouts, and I asked my friends, I said, well, 300 blackout is cool, but if you need to go hunting, are you going to be able to hunt with that 300 blackout? And they went silent. They couldn't respond. And I started to explain to them that, 300 blackout has, poor ballistics. It doesn't have good energy and velocity enough to, take down a big game animal like a deer or bear or mule deer or elk. It's just not adequate. And I explained to them that the 300 blackout, like, in my opinion, it was one of these tactical, creations from the whole tactical craze where everybody believes that they have to be a Navy SEAL, and, you have to train like a SWAT officer, and you have to have the same weapons as a Navy SEAL that's doing direct action raids on compounds. And that's just totally false, in my opinion. Tactical weapons definitely have their place. There's a reason why AR-15s, 50 cals and things like that, there's a reason why they were created. And they were not created for SHTF. They were created for war, for combat, and for, raiding compounds, okay? If it's an SHTF situation, you're not going to be raiding compounds. You're not going to be doing direct action missions. You're not going to be jumping out of a plane. You're not going to be infiltrating behind enemy lines and doing things like that. That's a fantasy, okay? So you need to separate reality from fantasy, okay? Just because you watch your favorite YouTube channel and the guy's doing all these cool drills with his AR-15 and you want to emulate that guy, doesn't mean that that's the best thing for you. You need to stay practical. And, I hate to bring up another friend of mine. He's got so many different guns, and they're all very exotic. He's got like a 300 blackout AR-15, and he's got like a lot of classical collectors type firearms. But he doesn't really have any good practical hunting weapons or good practical defensive weapons. Everything is so exotic. He's got like an exotic pistol. He's got like all these exotic rifles and exotic AR-15s, 300 blackout, but he doesn't have something basic and effective like a 30-06 bolt action or a 12 gauge pump shotgun for home defense, or a revolver, a 357 revolver, all those firearms are very simple, practical, and time tested, and you don't want to be in one of those types of people where you have 20 different guns and all your guns are strictly purchased because you saw somebody on YouTube talking about them. You saw Colion Noir or one of these other guys on YouTube, saying, oh yeah, you got to get this rifle. This 300 blackout is so cool. And, you're watching some of these other guys, Tactical Rifleman or Garand Thumb, and you're watching these guys doing all the drills with the AR-15, and they got suppressors on their 300 blackout, and they're telling you guys that, yeah, 300 blackout is great. You can put a suppressor on it. It's quiet. It's subsonic. But yeah, it's quiet and it's subsonic, but it's pretty much useless because it's anemic. There's not enough powder and velocity to really push that bullet fast enough to create enough energy to take down anything really with any kind of armor or any kind of barriers, or if you're hunting big game, it's just not powerful enough, So So you don't want to fall into that trap, because a lot of those YouTube channels, they're promoting certain companies that they get sponsorships from. They're promoting those companies because they're getting paid to push a certain product, you know. So let's say 300 blackout or tactical training courses, you know, they're pushing that because they get a kickback in some way, you know, or they're advertising their own training classes, like I forgot the guy's name, James Yeager. And I have nothing wrong with James Yeager. He's, you know, a cool guy, but, you know, he's always pushing for the tactical training. And obviously that's because he does tactical training courses. You know, do you need tactical training courses to protect your family and to survive SHTF and for home defense? No, you don't. You don't need that stuff, okay? You need to learn the basics first, okay? You need to learn the fundamentals of marksmanship. You need to learn basic shooting positions, basic movement, you know, basic ways to clear a room. I mean, these things you don't really need to spend thousands of dollars in training to have a Navy SEAL coach you how to do. You know, you just need to invest a couple hundred dollars in ammunition, and spend a few weekends at the range and have some good productive training sessions on your own, practicing the fundamentals of marksmanship, you know, the different shooting positions, and then you can do your own shooting drills at the range. You don't need to pay someone thousands of dollars to tell you this is what a front sight is, and this is what a rear sight is, and this is how you align them. You don't need to do that, okay? And going into the practical aspect, okay, just because something is tactical doesn't necessarily mean that it's practical, okay? You know, for example, a 50 BMG, you know, that's a tactical firearm, all right? But is it practical? Is it cool to have a 50 BMG? Of course it is. I would love to have one. But is it actually practical? Are you really going to use a 50 BMG? Even after SHTF in a Mad Max world, where are you going to use a 50 cal, okay? And even if you did use that 50 cal, you don't have access to armor-piercing weapons for that 50 cal because you're a civilian. Or, I'm sorry, armor-piercing bullets, okay? You don't have access to armor-piercing incendiary Rofus rounds that have a tungsten penetrator, all right? That's what really makes the 50 cal get its full potential, okay? If you just have a 50 cal with standard, you know, soft tip bullets, you know, yeah, it's a huge bullet and it has a lot of energy, but you're not going to get the same level of performance, you know, if you don't have those armor piercing rounds, because that's what it was designed for, is for armor piercing, you know, applications and anti-material applications. So, you know, if you don't have those armor-piercing rounds, you're not getting the full potential out of it anyway, and it costs $10,000, you know. So, yeah, you can, if you have the money, that's fine, but for $10,000, for 150 BMG, you can buy yourself probably 10 good, solid rifles, AR-15s, bolt-action rifles. You can get yourself a couple of pistols, pump shotguns that are going to do much more for you than that, you know, cool, you know, 50 BMG rifle that you want to just be able to show off to everybody, but it's not really practical, you know. And again, I'm not saying that you can't collect weapons and you can't, you know, try to be, you know, pretend like you're a Navy SEAL on the weekends and do your little drills that, you know, Tactical Rifleman or Garand Thumb, you know, showed you on his latest video, and you know, that's fine. But you have to separate reality from fantasy, okay? You have to have weapons that are actually practical, that are actually going to work for you in a real life situation where it's a real life or death situation, okay? And what I mean by that is things that are tested, that withstood the test of time, all right? So 300 Blackout, in my opinion, is the dumbest cartridge invention ever. All right, a 300 Blackout is totally idiotic, and it's really duped a lot of people into wasting their money into buying 300 Blackout rifles. when you could literally buy a 308 and then just hand load it down to lower pressure and lower velocity and get the same thing as a 300 blackout, but then you still have the potential to load it to its full max and get, you know, full power out of that 308 case, and, you know, be able to drop a deer at 600 yards, you know, or engage enemies at 600, 700, 800 yards. All right. A 300 blackout, you can't do that because it's already at its max loading, and its max loading is barely clearing the speed of sound. All right. But how many people, you know, got duped by all these tactical channels and YouTube guys, you know, that say that they're special ops veterans, and they're promoting these crappy cartridges like a 300 blackout. All right. Stick to things that are practical and things that have withstood the test of time. All right. So when I say practical, I mean 12 gauge shotgun, bolt action rifle with a good scope, you know, a good revolver, a good semi-automatic pistol. All right. It doesn't have to have a red dot on it. It doesn't have to have a flashlight mounted on it. You just want to have a good pair of iron sights with tritium on it. And, you know, you don't necessarily need a reflex sight. You know, everybody today, they think that more gadgets is going to make them a better shooter, okay? And more gadgets is just things that are going to fail when you need them the most, all right? Like, for example, a reflex sight. You know, there's a reason why on this pistol I have right here, I do not have a reflex sight on it, okay? I have iron sights. Why do I have iron sights? Because this is a pistol that I would potentially use to defend my life against a bear attack, okay? If there's a bear charging me at, you know, 30 or 40 miles an hour, and I have a reflex sight, okay? What happens if the reflex sight doesn't turn on? You know, it's supposed to turn on automatically, or maybe the dot is too dim, you know, based on what my background is that I'm aiming at. I may not be able to see the dot well. It may be washed out by the sunshine. So that's why I stay away from reflex sights and dot sights, all right? Electronic sights can fail. You know, same thing with a weapon-mounted flashlight. A weapon-mounted flashlight, if I have a weapon-mounted flashlight on this pistol here, all right, if it's the only flashlight that I have on me and it fails, I'm screwed, you know. But if I have a flashlight in my pocket, I'm always going to have that with me, you know. So a lot of guys, they get all this tactical stuff, the reflex sights, the red dot sights, you know, the weapon-mounted lights, the IR lasers, guys. What do you need an IR laser for? Even if it's SHTF, what do you need an IR laser for? What are you going to do with that? Okay, you have to think practical, okay? Now, there are situations where having tactical weaponry is considered practical, like this shotgun here, which I recently did a video of me shooting this shotgun. If you want to check back, I shot some watermelons, I patterned some loads. This is what you would consider a tactical shotgun, but to me this is practical, okay? I have a basic 2-point sling. I don't have any fancy 3-point sling here. I have a basic flashlight on it. I have some good iron sights. I have a ghost ring iron sight on it with tritium. I have you know, just a side saddle. I don't have anything fancy. I don't have a you know, a Magpul stock with a, you know, a shell holder on the side and a big, you know, aim point on the top and an IR laser on the side and a 7-point sling so I can sling it from my leg and over my head and all this crap. You got to be realistic, guys. Okay, you have to be realistic. Okay, home defense and SHTF is not Call of Duty, okay? It's not a YouTube video, okay? Real life is different than, you know, entertainment, okay? And I learned this working as a bouncer, okay? There was a lot of guys that, when I was a bouncer, you know, they were, you know, studying martial arts, and they thought that they were going to use martial arts in the club to deal with people. you know, and some of them were very good martial artists, you know, but the fact of the matter is that all those guys that, you know, they had all the martial arts skills were the worst bouncers, all right, because they were so, their thinking was too advanced, and they were too complicated, you know. Real life situations call for simplicity, okay? You need to have things very simple, okay? Like this pistol here. Everything on this pistol is simple. I don't have any lasers. I don't have any flashlights, all right? I don't have a red dot. I have basic iron sights that I know no matter what happens, I can drop this 20 feet down and these iron sights are still going to work, okay? I can smash this against a wall and nothing's going to happen to these iron sights, okay? And that's what you want. You want simplicity and reliability. And yeah, you know, it's a slower reload here because it's a revolver. But am I really going to be in a situation where I need to have 40 rounds of pistol ammunition, where I'm going to be, you know, shooting at somebody with 50 rounds of pistol ammunition and doing speed reloads and things like that? No, okay? I'm not a cop. I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm a civilian, okay? If anything, I have to deal with maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 guys breaking into my house. And if it's SHTF, even if I have you know, a high capacity magazine and an AR-15 with a 200 round drum, it doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily be able to defend my house. You know, they could have 10 people that could surround my house, and even with the best weaponry, you're outgunned, you know. So stick to things that are practical, guys, okay? You know, your SHTF weapons should also be able to do things for you besides, you know, just assaults and raids and tactical situations. You know, SHTF is a very diverse situation. You're going to need weapons that can do many different things, okay? You can't just have a rifle that was designed for raiding compounds, all right? Or like an AR pistol in 300 blackout, okay? Yeah, that's very good for close quarters. You know, if you're clearing a lot of houses, then yeah, it's awesome to have a 10-inch barrel 5.56, you know, because you can swing it around easily. You know, but if you have to engage a target at 200 yards, 300 yards, 500 yards, that 10-inch barrel AR-15 and 5.56 is going to be totally anemic and useless, all right? You're going to be outgunned. So you need to have weapons that are versatile and practical, all right? Like I said, the 50 BMG, that's cool, it's tactical. But for the price of 150 BMG, I can get, you know, 5 30-06s and give them to all my neighbors. And I can get, you know, 3 or 4 pistols and give them to all my family members. And I can get 2 or 3 shotguns and give them to my family for hunting or something, you know. So you got to be practical, guys, okay? It's cool to have a plate carrier and a 100-round drum and, you know, a 10-inch barrel AR-15 in 300 blackout or 5.56. But practically, it's not going to really be useful for you. You're never going to actually have to use those things. And more likely, you're going to be using your bolt-action 30-06 to shoot a deer for some extra meat after an SHTF than you are dumping 200-round drums into, you know, marauders, okay? So, you know, think about practical weapons that you can use for multiple situations and different terrains, different situations, different applications. You want to have versatility, okay? Like I said, the 10-inch barrel 5.56, it's great if you're clearing rooms and doing close quarters battle, you know, but it's useless for hunting. It's useless for longer distance engagements. You know, it doesn't have the power, the penetration. The bullet is tiny, okay? So you need to think, because SHTF is a dynamic and versatile situation. And, you know, yeah, the Navy SEALs, they use all this equipment and they're trained with it. But Navy SEALs have very specific missions, okay? They do things that are very specific, and outside of those specific missions, those weapons are not useful, okay? For example, an MP5, okay? or a 50 cal, right? A 50 cal is specifically designed for, long, extremely long range, shooting at targets 2 miles away. That's where the 50 cal is really useful, or destruction of material, vehicles, and things like that. When are you going to ever have to shoot 2 miles away? Now, again, I'm not saying you can't have one, and I'm not against exotic weaponry and collecting firearms, but if you have a limited budget and you're thinking about home defense and SHTF, you have to keep it practical. You can't get off on these fantasy scenarios and get caught up in these YouTube channels that are pushing all this stuff that you're never going to really ever have to use. Okay, so let me give you an example of something that I call practical, all right, and that's this 44 Magnum revolver here, okay? This 44 Magnum is what I call a practical weapon, all right? Why is it practical? Because I can defend my home with this pistol, all right? It's a 6-shot revolver, but I can also use this for bear defense. I spend a lot of time in the woods, okay? I live in the Catskill Mountains of New York. In the Catskills, there's bears that are routinely get over 500 pounds, okay? Black bears, all right? Black bears that get over 500 pounds. And there have been attacks on people in this area, okay? There was a baby that was taken from a stroller in 2005 in the Catskills. And the baby was taken out of its stroller by a bear and dragged off into the woods. And the baby died, unfortunately, because the bear grabbed the baby by the head and instantly killed it, even after the bear was scared away. So then there was also a bear in New Jersey, not far away from the Catskills, where a hiker was stalked, killed, and consumed by a male black bear. Okay, so a 44 Magnum for me, where I live, is practical because I can defend my home with it, but I can also hunt with it. When I go hiking in the woods or backpacking or camping, I can have it with me as protection against any kind of man-eating bear that may be lurking around. Okay, that's a practical weapon. Okay, and same thing with this shotgun here. Okay. To me, this is a practical weapon. This is practical, all right? It's basic, it works. It's, a 12-gauge shotgun is something that has withstood the test of time, okay? Shotguns have been used for decades by police, by military. They were used in Vietnam. They were used by police. I mean, they're extremely withstood the test of time, okay? Something like a 300 Blackout, with a 10-inch barrel AR-15, that hasn't withstood the test of time. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know how well the round penetrates. Something like this shotgun has been tested. The 44 Magnum, this thing's been tested. Okay, there's been grizzly bears that have been shot with a 44 Magnum and have been killed with one shot. All right, and obviously against people, it's a little bit overkill, but it can still work, all right? And I live in a rural area, so I'm not that worried about over-penetration with my 44 mag. Now, if I lived in the city, a Glock 9mm might be a more practical choice, all right? But for me, because I'm more of a woodsman and more of a hunter, a 44 Magnum is more of a practical option for me than, having a Glock 9mm, which a Glock 9mm is very... single, it only has one purpose. A Glock 9mm is just for defense against people, for concealed carry and things like that, all right, for law enforcement. But a 44 mag is multi-purpose, and I can use it for different things, and for me, it's practical, all right? I'm actually going to use this. It's not going to sit in a safe. It's actually functional. It's reliable. It's withstood the test of time. 44 Magnum is a very tested cartridge. It's worked on many, for hunting, for bear defense, and for home defense, it's good too, and do I have a plate carrier? No, I don't have a plate carrier. I have a chest holster and I have some speed loaders here. Okay. I don't have a plate carrier, and you know, again, plate carriers are great, but is it practical? No. In my opinion, a plate carrier is not practical. It's more getting into this fantasy land where you're going to be running and gunning and raiding compounds and getting into firefights and things like that. If there's an SHTF situation, I'm not going to want to get into a firefight, okay? I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid firefights and not have to engage people. And even if you have a plate carrier, your arms are still exposed, okay? You have arteries that go through your bicep. You have arteries that go down your thighs. You know, just because you're protected on your chest doesn't mean if you take a bullet to the bicep, you could tear out your artery there, or you can get hit in the femoral artery. You have a femoral artery that goes through your thigh, okay? You get hit in your thigh, you can hit that artery and you bleed out. So you have all this gear that you're wearing, but you get hit in the thigh and you bleed out and die. So what's the point, you know? So my whole point of this video is make sure anything that you buy is practical and you're actually going to get use out of it. It's reliable, it's versatile, it's withstood the test of time. If you're looking for weapons for SHTF, they need to be versatile. They can't just be one use. They have to be able to provide meat for you. They have to be able to engage at long distances and short distances. You know, you need to have a weapon that is versatile. In my opinion, a bolt action 30-06 is one of the best overall weapons that you can get. You can hunt with it. You can defend at long distances with it. You know, you could become like a sniper with that thing. Revolvers are good. Pump action shotguns. You know, a good basic Glock 9mm with an iron sight. Stay away from, you know, fancy gadgets that you know can break and you need batteries for. Stay away from that stuff, okay? Keep it simple, keep it practical. You know, don't start collecting all these firearms that you're never going to use and wasting money on them. Get yourself a couple of good practical weapons and practice with them. Get familiar with them, understand their ballistics. You know, have enough parts for those weapons and really master those weapons. You know, it's better to do that than to have 10 different weapons that are useless for you. Okay? You're not going to need an IR laser. You're not going to need, you know, a 50 cal. You're not going to need a 300 blackout with subsonic with a suppressor on it. Okay? Those are things that are more getting into the fantasy rather than the reality. What's a reality practical weapon to me? Bolt action 30-06, pump action 12 gauge shotgun, you know, maybe an AR-15 with a longer barrel, like either in 5.56 or 308. Okay, stay away from 300 blackout or any exotic cartridges that have not been tested, you know, withstood the test of time. Stay away from reflex sights and red dot sights, okay? Yeah, the military has used aim points and they've used all these things, but you're not in the military, okay? You don't have 10 guys watching your back, okay? If your reflex sight fails, you don't have a squad of guys behind you to back you up, okay? So stick to iron sights, okay? Stay away from electronics, you know, red dot sights, reflex sights. They're great, okay? But a good old-fashioned scope is more reliable, okay? And in my opinion, it's because there's no electronics in it. You just have a crosshair, and you can get illuminated scopes. So you know, it can kind of be like a red dot sight. And you know, if you are going to get a red dot sight, I would stay away from reflex sights, especially on your pistol, guys. If you have a pistol and you can't shoot a pistol without iron sights, you have no business owning a pistol or owning firearms, okay? You have to master the basics first, okay? You have to master iron sights before you move on to red dot sights and reflex sights, okay? I know people that have never shot weapons without a reflex sight. They've never shot iron sights, okay? They don't even know how to adjust a sight in a pistol, okay? And they have all this gear, they have all these flashlights, IR lasers, you know, red dot sights, and they don't even know how to adjust a rear sight and a front sight. How do you move the point of impact up or down, left or right? You know, they don't even know basic concepts of sighting in a weapon or basics of shooting, okay? And they're already buying advanced things like IR lasers, okay? Because they saw it on a YouTube channel and some guy was pushing it so he could get money from his sponsors, you know? So guys, separate fantasy from reality and practical versus tactical, all right? That's the message of this video. You know, master the basics first before you get into all the fancy stuff, all right, guys? And even if you have the fancy stuff, remember that the fancier something is and the more complicated it is, the more likely it is to break when you need it, okay? So that's why I like to keep things simple rather than more advanced, all right? Just like I gave you this example with my pistol, all right? I have iron sights on this. These iron sights will never fail me, okay? There's no battery on them. There's no parallax. There's no glass that can break. You know, there's no dot washout where the dot can be washed out by the sun. Same thing with this shotgun, okay? Very basic, practical shotgun, okay? With a basic flashlight on it and a 2-point sling, all right? Keep it simple, guys, all right? Keep it simple, keep it practical. Don't get into all this stuff, you know, that you're never going to use, okay? Keep it simple, all right? And remember, practical is more important than tactical. So thanks for watching. Take care, God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.